Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegrand, G-R-A-N, group at edinarealty.com or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, 7-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners. On this episode, David and Dan recap the Twins' 4-game series against the Cleveland Guardians. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning into Men for the Win. My name is David Kufis. With me, as always, is Dan Thompson. The Twins host a 4-game series against the Cleveland Guardians, starting 3.5 back to start the series, and they finish the series 3.5 back. Dan, are you happy with that outcome?
No, not really, because of the way the first 2 games went. If this had been reversed, yes. So the recency bias certainly plays into this. After the way the first 2 games went and they sweep that Friday, I really wanted them to win one more game here, and then, then they would have been only 1.5 back, but now they're back to 3.5 back, and we're kind of right where we started.
Yeah, I'm curious, Dan, if I had told you before the series started, you knew nothing yet about the series, and I gave you the option to take the split or take whatever the outcome may be, would you have taken the split?
Yeah, I'd take a split because coming into the series, we didn't know what the Twins had with starting pitching, really with bullpen, with their lineup, for goodness sake, just kind of the way things were going. So, yes, I would have been happy at the beginning. And ultimately, it's not the worst case scenario, which was getting swept. Now we're kind of right back where we were, and let's see now where it goes from here, because now they got to play the Royals. This isn't over yet.
No, it's a rough stretch of games, certainly. Now, Dan, I don't know if you tuned in on Saturday, but I think the game was supposed to start at 6, and I think it started at about 8:30. After Terry Ryan had finished his acceptance speech into the Twins Hall of Fame?
Yeah, so Terry Ryan's acceptance speech, I caught just a couple minutes because I was listening and I thought, let's see what the Twins game's going on. He was just listing off things that happened in different years. So in 1997, we drafted so-and-so. And then Eric Milton had a great, 7-walk no-hitter or something. It was just like, it was all of these things. And I'm like, did you do any of that, Terry? It just sounds like you were around for those things.
He was vital to the operation.
Well, right. He was the general manager. Like, I'm not saying he had no hand in this. But, like, he wasn't. By the way, this is unrelated, but did you know, a friend told me this, that like the U.S. Olympic basketball team that won a gold medal, did you know that the coaches don't get medals? It's just the athletes. Weird. And I think this is kind of like that, right? Like Terry Ryan is claiming a medal here for things, and it wouldn't be a gold. I mean, it would be a bronze, right, for these Twins teams. I don't know. Good on him, I guess. I mean, he was very successful. The teams, I should say, who he put together and then were managed by different people were very successful.
I don't even know how he makes the podium, Dan. Like, I guess if there's only 3 people in the race, I suppose that's acceptable. But other than that, there's no way that guy gets a medal.
Yeah. Anyway, the other thing that was funny about this weekend is that the Twins retired the W for Washington Senators. I didn't know you could retire letters, David.
It's pretty impressive. Now, there was a new number up on the left field wall. You can see it's all the retired numbers for the Twins. And this was under wraps for a super long time. And nobody knew what was happening. The Twins made no buildup of this. And so everybody was like, well, it's got to be Rick Stalmazik, who also was entered into the Twins Hall of Fame with Terry Ryan. So everybody's assuming that's the number that's going to be retired. And then they take it off and it's a W. And it's like, I think they screwed up. That's not a number. Dan.
So then a couple questions. So do we have to start calling the Twins pitcher Simeon Uds Richardson and like Matt Allner and like Royce Less? But we should get into this, shall I say, the Twins Guardians series.
How long are we going to have to deal with this, Dan?
Series recap.
It was like funny for like the first bit.
It's like a
but
pun.
if you keep this going, Dan.
Words.
It's not even a pun.
But I omitted a
like,
letter. Right, so...
Well, yeah, I understand. Okay, anyway. Okay, game 1 here. Twins come out of the gate with a win, thankfully. 4-2. Bailey Ober on the bump, Dan. Absolutely outstanding. 6 innings pitched, 2 hits, no earned runs, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts. But here's the kicker, Dan. 9 straight quality start for Bailey Ober, which is insane. The last guy to do it, Nick Blackburn, of course. And then if he does 10 straight, the last guy to do that, Dan, a little bit more familiar name who will stick in the mind of Twins fans, obviously, Johan Santana.
Yeah, that's a pretty stellar list to be a part of, certainly if he gets up to Santana. The Twins take a lead in this early in the bottom of the first. Manny Margot hits a double, advances to third on a Buxton flyout, and then Lewis hits an RBI ground out. The Twins were playing some small ball. At least here it helped. So they're up 1-0. And then Miranda singled, but he was thrown out as he took too large of a turn around first. Is this a Hank Conger issue, or is this a Jose Miranda issue?
Jose Miranda all the way. You could see it on the replay. I don't even think he was listening to Hank. The ball was in the alley, to be fair, but Cleveland got to it too fast, and Miranda didn't make the decision to retreat quick enough, and he got picked off. It was close, but it wasn't that close.
Well, in the bottom of the second, the Twins get another one on a solo home run by Carlos Santana against his former team, so it's 2-0. They have another chance in the third. Margot and Buxton each walk, but then Royce hits into an inning-ending double play. That was a theme, especially on Friday. Bottom of the fourth, Ryan Jeffers hits a solo home run, so the Twins are up 3-0, and things are going well.
Top of the sixth here, Bailey's almost out, Dan. He's almost through six. He's got 2 outs on the board, and there's a dribbler hit back to him, and he just can't make the play. So he can't field the soft grounder, so he's credited with an error, but it doesn't matter. He gets the next guy up. And again, I just can't say anything more positively about Bailey Ober. He just played so phenomenally in a game that the Twins desperately needed him to play well.
Yeah, the Guardians get a couple on the top of the seventh. Alcala comes in. He gives up a 2-run home run to Brian Rocco. So the Twins are up 3-2, but they get one back. The Twins do in the bottom of the seventh, a key late run. Kepler doubles, Castro singles, and then Farmer hits a sac fly. Farmer is back, by the way, taking the spot of Brooks Lee, which I gotta say, did I not predict that Brooks Lee was going to go on the injured list
here? You did. 100%. You called this. You said they've been priming us for this move, waiting for Farmer to come up. You couldn't have scripted it more accurately.
Well, and then afterwards they're kind of blaming Brooks, like, well, he doesn't really know how to talk about injuries with his coaches. Come on, you knew this was the plan the whole time, Rocco. How else were you going to get Kyle Farmer on this team and Brooks Lee sent down to something, without the fan base rioting?
We do need to note, Dan, 4th straight game with no pinch hitters or pinch runners used by Rocco.
Hang on a minute. We could use a pinch.
Yeah, I guess if the Twins are winning and things are going well, he doesn't seem to care so much. But yeah, it's 4th straight game. Go figure.
There are times, Dan, when I do wonder if Rocco has been replaced with some sort of other person who looks very similar to Rocco. But with that, let's go on to game 2 here. Twins win this one 6-3. In either of these games, though, Dan, I never felt like, oh my goodness, the Twins are definitely going to win these games. Like, it was so good to finish with the win. This was Louis Varland's return after absolutely dominating at AAA. He goes 4 2/3, but he gives up 8 hits and 3 earned runs, 4 strikeouts. It's a little bit of a mess here, Dan, because Louis Varland was pitching so well until he wasn't.
Yeah, but some of the trouble in the top of the 5th, where he got into trouble, was because of guys not making plays behind him, right? Kepler missing a catch at a foul ball and stuff. And the big hit for the Guardians, all their runs are on a home run by Josh Naylor. But before that, the Twins do have an early 2-0 lead on a really impressive play, I think, by the Twins in the bottom of the first, or maybe it's just a bad play by Austin Hedges.
I don't 100% understand how this happens, but so Castro singles, Larnach singles, Wallner grounds out. So there's runners on 1st and 3rd. Castro's at 3rd, Wallner's on 1st. Lewis walks, but supposedly what it looked like from the fan perspective is a double steal was called. And so Wallner goes, and it's a walk to Lewis, but Austin Hedges throws to 2nd. Wallner stops between 1st and 2nd, and I'm not sure if he did that intentionally to try and force a rundown. Castro to score at home, or if he was just as confused as Austin Hedges was and he didn't know what the count was and he wasn't sure if Royce actually walked. Willie steals home, and this was the decision by Willie Castro. Rocco confirmed after the game this was not a double steal call, which again, a double steal on a count where the guy can walk is a little bit messy, as we see here on the field, but all of this just leads to Castro getting credited with a stolen base of home, which is just a fun thing to say, even if it was definitely not like a straight steal in any sort of sense of the word.
Well, and then what's funny is that the Twins have a little bit of kind of funny business at 3rd base later on in the bottom of the 7th when Vasquez is kind of dancing off of 3rd and forces Tim Herron into a balk, I guess. Some good base running, I suppose, between 3rd base and home for the Twins.
Big moment in this game here. Obviously, it's top of the 5th. Varland gets into trouble again, as we mentioned. No help from the field. Kwan singles after Kepler had missed a foul ball catch down the right field line that Kepler was very mad at himself because he knows that Stephen Kwan is one of the best hitters in baseball right now. He slams his glove into the wall knowing that he should have made the catch. Will Brennan singles, and then Josh Naylor on a middle fastball on a 1-2 count.
Love the middle pitches, David.
Smokes it to right field. Now we're looking at a game where the Guardians have just taken a lead, and it's 3-2 Guardians, and everybody's sad, and it's Matt Wallner who comes in big with a 3-run shot. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But this play that you mentioned, Dan, regarding Vasquez in the bottom of the 7th, Vasquez walks, Martin singles, Castro grounds into a double play. So there's 2 outs, but Vasquez is on third. Watching this, it looked funny, and I understand why the balk was called. However, to me, it seemed like the balk kind of happened after the balk was called, if that makes sense. Like it was all of the hubbub between Tommy Watkins and Vasquez dancing, and hearing on the mound like is sort of looks a little confused. And so I don't know if in his confusion he definitely shifts his weight again and like moves his leg in a way that he cannot without it being a balk. But I've watched that play 15 times, Dan, and I think if you remove the sound, I don't know that you catch that it's a balk.
Well, it could just be another Austin Hedges mistake, right, where he's pointing at third base because they think Vasquez is going to do something.
Yes.
I mean, it was one of those plays where it's like, I guess I can understand why a balk was called because something weird happened, but whether it was actually illegal is a little bit strange. There's a lot of good videos online you can find, and I think people have a lot of arguments for both sides of that.
Yeah, so Stephen White is ejected for arguing this call. He was going to be gone immediately. Like, he was doing anything to get his team fired up. Thankfully, the team stayed pretty mellow the rest of the outing.
Well, and then the Twins do their best to not win this game. They're grounded into 5 double plays, which was 2 shy of the Major League Baseball record. By the way, the Twins are actually part of an interesting record here. This is according to Baseball Almanac. Between them and the Red Sox, and this was a game back in 1990, they combined to ground into 10 double plays. That is the all-time record between 2 teams playing each other, but this one was just too shy. But it felt like a lot of rallies were killed by double plays, and it was just nice to finally escape with a win.
Top of the 9th, and last note here, Trevor Richards, who has not had the best start to his Twins career, does bounce back here, goes 1-2-3, and earns a save to finish this one out.
Yeah, and again, with Sands, Thielbar, and Richards closing this one out because you don't have your big arms because of the doubleheader, that feels really good. And so then we were feeling good going into Game 3, where the Twins pitched really well again, but they lose this one 2-1.
This was so frustrating. So SWR, or Sim, as I guess we're calling him now, great outing, disappointing result though. 7 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, no walks, 7 strikeouts, 2 home runs. That's all he gave up was 2 solo shots. And I have to be honest, Dan, playing the team that Cleveland is, that hits a lot of long balls, I don't think 2 solo shots is that bad, especially if you pitch 7.
No, we're going to talk more about him later. He had a fantastic outing. I think only 89 pitches. But his first pitcher, it was at least in the first at-bat, was not good. Stephen Kwan led off with a solo home runs. It was 1-0, but he really settled down after that.
Yeah, and then bottom third here, there would have been a great chance for the Twins. Jeffers singles, and then Martin has a fielder's choice. There's an error by Josh Naylor, though. So now Castro, he gets credited with a force out, which shouldn't be the case because he would have made first, but Jeffers didn't understand that Castro's hit to left field was going to drop. Jeffers waited long enough to get thrown out at third via force out, which to me, Dan, is far too long.
Yeah, those are tricky plays. I mean, because you are kind of caught in no man's land. A faster guy probably can make it there. That's it's like a video game out, right? Where you hit the ball to the outfield and you still get kind of the force out. But yeah, that was unfortunate because the Twins really could have used a run there. Changed the whole tenor of the game.
Oh, 100% here. So then top of the 6th, Bo Naylor, solar home run. You can't keep the Nailers off the board is really how it goes. They're going to get you at some point in the series. It's just a little disappointing that it happened in a game where the Twins' offensive production was so anemic.
One might say, David, you can't nail them down.
It's like a pun. It's a play on words.
I do get it.
Did you eat something weird before we started recording?
No. I love my puns. And then Illy Castro in the bottom of the 6th hits a double. Larnach ground out moves into third. And then Allner hits an RBI ground out. So the Twins are down 2-1. And then
stop. Please, we need a sounder that's just stop. I don't know what that sounder
all right,
would
fine.
Be. Maybe it's just
fine,
me
I'm
saying,
done.
please stop.
I got them all out of my system. You go ahead and finish out.
Yeah, so not too much else to say here. So Twins only get that 1 run, and then Einder finishes the game. I'm just kidding. I'll never do that again. Finishes the game. He goes 2 innings pitched, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. Twins go 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. Only 4 hits, 6 walks, Dan, for the Twins.
Yeah, I think this is a frustrating loss. And then really, in many ways, so was Game 4 because of the way that it ended. The Guardians win this one 5-3. Twins do have some decent chances early on in this game to take a lead, but they're not able to. They do have an early lead. Bottom of the 2nd, Byron Buxton hits a solo home run. He jumps on the first pitch, fastball middle, so the Twins are up 1-0. But then the top of the 4th, the guy who the Twins controlled pretty well overall this series was Jose Ramirez until this at bat, really. He hits a solo home run to tie the game at 1.
Yeah, and I'm not too upset at the homer, to be honest. It was a well-placed pitch, and the count was in the batter's favor. Festa, though, this is the big moment here. because it's the top of the fourth. Festa is replaced by Alcala with the bases loaded and 1 out, and he gets 2 huge outs. And in that moment, Dan, I thought the momentum has shifted so aggressively in the Twins' favor. There's no way they don't win this baseball game.
Yeah, but as it turns out, they couldn't capitalize on that momentum. The top of the 6th, then Thielbar comes in, gives up a David Fry solo home run, so it's 2-1. But then things don't get any better. The Guardians are able to basically, they rally with a walk, a steal. The Guardians love to steal second base in spots where you really wish you could have a double play. And I get that that's kind of every time you have a guy on first base, basically. But they were able to avoid some problems that way. And yeah, so then Thielbar has trouble. Sands comes in and replaces him. But ultimately, the Guardians are able to add a couple more runs. So it's 5-1. And it feels like it's going to be hard for the Twins to come back then, based on how good the Guardians' bullpen has been.
Yeah, so the Twins did show a little bit of life, though, in the bottom of the 8th. Lewis doubles and then Buxton's homers. So now it's 5-3. And you're starting to think maybe there's a way that the Twins can fight their way back.
And in the top of the 9th, it looks like the Guardians are going to put this out of reach. They get 2 on, nobody out. But then David Fry bunts and Vasquez makes a great play. The bunt didn't travel very far, but he heads up, picks up the ball, guns it to third, and then Lewis guns it across the diamond to Miranda. That's a really hard double play to actually make, and it kills the Guardians' rally. And so then it opens up the bottom of the 9th, which starts super well. Kepler singles, and this is off Emmanuel Clase. Farmer walks. Vasquez singles, because apparently the Twins can't actually score when they get hits with runners in scoring position. Bases are loaded, nobody out. Castro has a good at bat, but strikes out on a foul tip with the full count. And then Larnach grounds into a double play that really was a nice play by the Guardians second baseman to make the stop and the flip. Maybe a faster guy is able to run it out, but gosh, bases loaded, nobody out against Clase. I thought this was going to be a moment, and with Royce Lewis on deck.
Don't you dare get upset about them not scoring when
I am.
They had the bases loaded
Oh my
and no
gosh.
outs.
Of course
Johnson.
I'm upset.
Would
you stop? You're twisting my words. This is rewriting history.
What drama?
No,
what a game? What a finish.
I will die on this hill because I have the receipts, Dan. You can deny it, but my goodness, everybody listening knows. Everybody listening knows what you've said.
There's got to be a way to wipe the memory off of your phone. Can't we figure that out? Well, in any case, the Twins split, so they remain 3.5 back. Let's move forward here into Puckett's Picks winner.
Catch 'em all, Kirby Puckett!
Puckett's Picks winner.
I don't really love the direction things have gone here as of late, Dan.
Yeah, so Hogs lands Buxton picking 4th, which was all kinds of ironic if you want to listen to the last episode. Buxton has the big game 4. He ends up with 13 points, which also gets him the bonus, so he gets a 1.5 for Hogs. I picked Wallner, who had that great hit we'll talk about. He had 7 points. You picked Miranda, who had -1, and then the listeners went with Royce Lewis, and he only had the 1 point. Not a great series for the guys that you two picked.
Yeah, it was a rough one here, but I'm still in the lead here with 18. Hogs is catching up, though, slowly but surely. He's at 13. The listeners are at 10. Dan, you've been stuck at 6.5 for about as long as I can remember.
I'm playing spoiler at this point.
All right, well, with that here, let's go on to Beast versus Bench.
Beast versus Bench.
Is losing fun? Is losing fun?
So
I know it's a bit cliche, but I'm going to go with Christian Vasquez. Something is there's no way he just is caught fire.
Yeah,
all of a sudden,
but that
right?
is what happens.
But
That's what happens with baseball players.
not after 2.5 years of dormancy, Dan. But honestly, Dan, he looks like a different player, does he not?
I mean, even Mount Vesuvius erupts every few. I don't
think that's what this is. He looks better. He was playing with more confidence. He's not having terrible at-bats with slow rolling ground outs, Dan. This one, he goes 4 for 6. He only plays in 2 of the games. But here's the thing. That balk was huge. He advanced to first to third. I don't quite understand, Dan. Something has changed. There's no way this is just random.
Maybe his children are being really nice to him. I don't understand. Like, something positive has happened to Christian Vasquez, and that's good. And he also had that great.
Sometimes I'll start a sentence, and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the
Well,
way.
you asked me to explain the unexplainable, and so I'm doing the best that I can. Well, in any case, I went with Simeon, I'm going to say it, Woods Richardson for his wonderful start in Game 3. Just a really good sign for a guy that they're going to need to step up and be, dare we say, the number 3 starter in this rotation. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but he has obviously that really important outing. And then as for my bench, I'm going to go with Jose Miranda. He was 1 for 12 in this series. They just need more from him with Correa out. He's got to step into and be part of that trio with Buxton and Lewis.
I had a hard time coming up with a bench here. I think Miranda from the offensive side is the clear choice, but I think Festa and Thielbar, I'm sort of combining here because they were both the downfall of the Twins here in game 4. Festa got into trouble. I realize if the Twins had a lead and if the game maybe wasn't as important as this game was, I think maybe he gets a chance to work out of the jam that he found himself in. And so maybe I would look more kindly upon him. But Caleb Thielbar, I got to be honest, everybody saw this coming. I was getting so annoyed with everybody saying about how great Thielbar has been as of late. And it just bothered me.
What?
I know
but
it shouldn't
why?
bother
He has been
me.
good of late. Why is it not okay to praise the work of a Minnesotan?
No, it's fine to praise it, but what I'm saying is they made it sound like it was inevitable that would continue. And I was just knowing inevitably it would get bad again. I just knew it, Dan. There was no question in my mind that's what was going to happen.
Well, your mention of Festa actually is a good segue into our next segment.
Rocco's Rewind.
Yeah, I have to give it to Rocco here. Game 4, top of the 4th. Bringing in Alcala in the 4th inning was the right call. It's a postseason style type game when you're playing against the Guardians, the team that you're definitely going to be chasing for the remainder of the season. You desperately want to win this game. The only problem is knowing how thin the bullpen is after you use Alcala in that spot. Now, high praise here. Jorge he got out of the jam and he pitched an additional inning, but then you're sort of out of luck here because you have 4 innings left and you basically have 2 guys who you trust. So you're going to have to use some other guys, and that's how Thielbar got in the game anyway. But I need to give props to Rocco because not a chance did I think he was going to bring in one of his high leverage guys at that point in the game in the 4th inning. We just don't see that out of Rocco.
That felt more like a Randy Dobnak moment, who, for the record, we didn't mention him, but he pitched the last 3 innings of this game. If the Twins had found a way to come back, he would have been the pitcher of record, and we would be singing his praises for hanging on to that. 2 hits, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. So he did get his mop-up work, and I guess heading into this Royals series, from Rocco's perspective, he still has fresh arms at the back of the bullpen. As for me, I wanted to actually look at the batting order of Game 2 as a little window into the future here. So one thing that I really liked about this, so it was Castro, Larnach, Wallner, and Lewis, and it got a little messy because there was some pitch hitting in there later in the game. But I loved having Matt Wallner in front of Royce Lewis, and obviously it played out in the moment we'll talk about in a bit here. But I like the protection for him because they're afraid of Royce Lewis, I think, especially with guys on base. If Matt Wallner is given the opportunity to crush baseballs that are just thrown down the middle because they don't want to face the next guy, that's setting him up for success. They need him to have a good finish because what they want is, there's all kinds of good things about that. One is that they can kind of say, hey, if Max Kepler is going to be too expensive, they got a guy who's ready there, who can play some right field. But the other thing, if you can put Carlos Correa in front of him, and you've got Correa, Wallner, Lewis, Buxton, Miranda, the lineup slots in so nicely if you can have Wallner in there protected by these righties around him.
Yeah, I think the downfall for Wallner is obviously the strikeouts, and honestly, if he can just limit those, don't be Joey Gallo or Miguel Sano. Be slightly better than them and hit slightly more home runs, and nobody's going to bat an eye at where you're hitting in the line.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see what Rocco can do with this, but I want him to protect some of these young guys because you have so much veteran quality around him on this roster as soon as, again, especially when Carlos Correa comes back.
Let's keep going here, Dan, because that segues well into my Minnesota moment.
Minnesota moment.
It's Minnesota times 2, I think, Dan. With Wallner being a Minnesotan playing for your Minnesota Twins, I'm taking the easy one off the board. It's got to be Game 2, bottom 5 here. Wallner's 3-run homer after Cleveland had just taken a lead off Naylor's home run. And the best part of this, I'm sure you've seen the video, folks, but if you haven't, you have to look it up. It's all over X. Royce Lewis's reaction. He says after the game, Royce Lewis has said, Wallner said to him, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. And he got him, which is great. But as Wallner hits it, first of all, I tweeted out, Dan, because I couldn't believe where this pitch was. And I get that it's 3-0 and you don't want to load the bases for Royce Lewis, but how scared of Royce Lewis do you need to be to throw a middle fastball to Matt Wallner, who, if there's one thing we know that Matt Wallner can do, it's absolutely destroy middle fastballs. And he didn't miss it. You would have thought it was batting practice, just the way that he knew where that ball was coming and he knew what to do with it.
He also didn't walk very fast towards first base either, like it was batting practice. He knew it off the bat too. That was such a fun moment. And he's had some big home runs already in his young career. He had a walk-off against the Diamondbacks, I believe, last year too. So this guy, so exciting to watch play. I'm going more with the Hoagsian Lynchian moment here, the moment that really encapsulates what this series was. And to me, it's the missed opportunity of the bottom of the ninth of the last game here. You load the bases with no outs against Cleveland's closer. You have a chance to really kind of hammer down a team that has struggled coming in. I think with the 2 losses in game 1 and 2, it was a 7-game losing streak for the Guardians. You have a chance to get back within 1.5 and really jumpstart your run past them. But now it's like, now you're still hoping for the Guardians to, 3.5 is a lot different than 1.5, I guess. And so it's just a missed opportunity that the Twins had after winning those first 2.
Yeah, it hurts. It definitely hurts. Let's keep going here. Maurer's musing.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Maurer's musings.
My question, Dan, it looks like we're both talking about pitching here. Can I call Bailey Ober an ace now? Can I do that? Is that realistic, or is that too much?
I think when a guy has 9 quality starts in a row and you're talking about comparing him to Johan Santana, yeah, I think you can. A little bit of it is by default, but even if Joe Ryan is healthy, I think you can start saying, hey, Bailey Ober is actually the ace of this. When his changeup is moving like it is, he has had a number of not just like quality starts, but like excellent quality starts where he's really shutting teams down. If you erase that, opening start against the Royals long ago, and I know we can't do that, but like he's been fantastic.
It's interesting to me the way that you just phrased that, because you said he's an ace by default. I guess I don't really think of ace pitcher like has to be the ace of this staff. I mean, like throughout baseball, I would put Bailey Ober in the upper echelon.
No, that's a good point. And I do think I see what you're saying about it's kind of a universal ace. Like he's not just the best pitcher on the team.
Yeah.
I do think that's fair. Now let's see if he can finish strong, and maybe he's the guy who's going to get more Cy Young votes than any other Twins pitcher right now. He could get. I mean, do you think he could be a top 6 pitcher when it's all said and done here by the end of the year in the AL?
No question. I mean, even if he has like 1 or 2 rocky starts, but not where he's given up 13 runs or whatever, I think he's definitely going to be in the conversation. He won't win the Cy Young because there's a couple of guys who are they're just unhittable this season. But my goodness, it would be fun to see him finish pretty high in those rankings.
I want to ask you then about kind of the rest of the rotation. And also, this is as good a time as any to mention a quote that Rocco had comparing having 3 rookies in the rotation to fatherhood. This is what he said. I had 1 child, and then I woke up one day, and I had 3, which is kind of true, right, because his wife had twins. It's different, but it's more of the same. Even if you think it sounds like a lot, and maybe more than you can handle it. Now, I love a good comparison, David, as you know.
Ogres are like onions.
But this doesn't make any sense. What is he talking about? Calling up... Can you help unpack what Rocco means here by comparing his... Which, by the way, he didn't even bring up Willie Castro. So can you help me understand what he's talking about here?
I think Rocco feels as a parent does when they take a beer or 2 into the shower, Dan, and they just cry a little bit. That's what I think he's comparing it to, that it's just too much. And when he says that you'll figure your way through it or whatnot, the only reason he's saying that is because you have. That's what I truly think he should have said. He goes, well, we have to figure it out because that's all we can do. And that's how it is with parenting. It's not like, oh, we have 3 now, I guess we'll just get rid of the most troublesome one. Like, that's not how parenting works.
Okay, well, so I'm going to offer a different comparison. It's more of an illusion, so it's not quite the same. But you've seen Apollo 13, David, right? You like older movies.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
Certainly.
So the NASA director, this is late in Apollo 13, and by the way, they make it back safely. I know I'm in like this limbo of spoilers lately. So the NASA director says, this could be the worst disaster NASA's ever experienced. And Gene Kranz, played by the great Ed Harris, says, with all due respect, sir, I believe this is going to be our finest hour. And that's a little bit how I'm feeling right now about this Twins rotation, David. So with that as the backdrop, I'm going to ask you, how would you fill these final 2 rotation spots, knowing that it's Lopez, it's Ober, and it's SWR?
Okay, first of all,
Ogres are like onions. End of story.
Also, Ed Harris, he's always looked 58 years old. I mean, from Apollo 13 to Westworld, he looks the exact same age. The man has never aged forward nor back. But anyway,
I'm not dead.
I don't know in what universe you think this could be our finest hour, Dan. There's just no way that we're not going to see some terrible starting pitching here a couple of times through the remainder of the season. What's the guy they're going to call up now?
Zebby Matthews.
Yeah. So who was I think he was at single A like last week. And they're like, well, yeah, he's been in the conversation. He's been in the conversation because he's all they have left, Dan.
He is the one.
I just think We're going to see. So we've heard, I think the Twins farm system was ranked like the 4th best now in baseball. We are going to see why, because we're going to see these young starters step up, and they're going to...
That's not how they rank farms. They don't rank... They're called farm systems because that means they're not in the MLB yet, Dan. You're making it sound like they rank farm systems by how many guys are waiting for an MLB spot to open
But they're ready.
up.
These guys are ready, and they're going to step up, and we're going to see... Maybe it won't be Zebby, but Festa has looked pretty good, actually, right? I don't think we're going to see the training wheels taken off, but we just saw the training wheels taken off SWR, and he had a great start. What makes you think, David, that this band of brothers, right, this happy group of rookies can't carry the Twins to the playoffs?
Those are two different questions. You can't just like merge 9 questions into one and then not allow, like, it doesn't make any sense what you're saying. No, I think that you can't go and look at the pitching probables for the next week and see 3 of them are TBD for the Twins and have any form of confidence that makes any sort of sense, Dan. It doesn't add up to me. And maybe it'll all work out in a golly gee shucks, oh man, look at this ace pitcher we just had pitching at AA that we forgot about. I just don't see it, Dan, where we're going to have these aces coming up out of our farm system that Dan somehow equates to great starting pitching is just waiting in the wings for a pitcher to
you just never know. All right, we should move forward here. We have to grade this series.
Series grades.
This was actually a very easy one to grade the advance retreat. I call this a 7 out of 10 because you're in the same spot that you were before. I think that feels like a C-. Well played baseball. I called it a 7 out of 10 because they pitched really well. They did have errors in 3 games, and they only had 5 hits with runners in scoring position. We said this before, they are 2 big hits in this series away from winning the series. So I'm going to call that a 14 out of 20, which is a C-.
Yeah, I don't think that's a terrible grade. I'm going to give them a D. None of this is really on the pitching staff, if that makes sense. Like the Festa Thielbar bench pick is more because they had to combine, and I don't know that things would have shaken out that way if things have gone a little bit more the Twins' way. Here's what I want to say about this, though, Dan. I'm giving them a D, but what I come away with here as far as positive vibes are concerned, this Cleveland team, Dan, is not as good as their record. And I always knew this deep down. I've said it on the podcast many times, but now, Dan, finally my head agrees with my heart. I think all this time it was my heart saying, Cleveland's bad. They're not this good. There's no way they can be this good. But my head kept looking at the stats and the run differentials and the ERA of their staff and how their offensive juggernauts going against these opponents. And now, Dan, I look at this team and I can evaluate it with my head, and I know they're not that good, Dan. I think the Twins win the division in spite of the fact that they're looking at Rich Hill potentially as for a rotation spot.
44-year-old Rich Hill.
I'm not dead.
Jamie Moyer is also on the Twin spot list here to check out. See, they actually had to check him out with a day pass out of the nursing home, but they thought he's still got a little bit of life in that arm.
All right, let's move on here. Look around the league.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's headlines.
I'm just saying, Dan, the Twins could make a move here. We don't have quite as many outfielders as we'd like. The Braves have, in fact, DFA'd Eddie Rosario. The hardest part about Eddie Rosario is that we never had a sounder for him. And that's honestly one of my deepest regrets, Dan.
I hate to say it, but the Twins really cut bait with him at a good time. And I know that he had that great playoff with the Braves.
He won a World Series, Dan. I don't know. I guess maybe his play wasn't great during the season, but my goodness, he left with a ring.
He did, and so good for him. But yeah, he's not the player he was. I know he dealt with some injuries with his eyes or some vision problems. I don't see him latching on to anybody else now. I mean, the Nationals had him for a bit, then the Braves took him back. So it is too bad. I do not want the Twins to add another left-handed bat to the outfield. Certainly not right now, Eddie Rosario.
And then the White Sox, Dan. They did it. They fired their manager. Not shocking. Is this not shocking at all?
Is this like you don't break up with your girlfriend on her birthday? Like, were they waiting? Like. Not during the streak, like they wanted him to get the win because they fired him just a couple days after they ended the 21-game losing streak.
That is the worst comparison you could have made, Dan, because that makes it sound like he was doing a good thing, like you were waiting until the good thing was over. But in your head, they waited until the loss streak was over in order to fire him. That's what you're saying. Maybe
I didn't think it through entirely, but now he's feeling better, right? He's feeling better about himself. He was able to get this team to a win, which.
There's no way one win made him feel good about himself after the way this season has gone, Dan.
No, I mean, nobody's knocking down Pedro Griffel's like voicemail right now to bring him on to the staff. But the funny part to me is they promoted Grady Sizemore, who is my age. I feel like he's 2 years older than me. I don't feel qualified to be managing a baseball team. Grady Sizemore is barely qualified. The guy wasn't even, I think it was just 2 years.
How can you even compare? I don't understand how you can even make that comparison, Dan, between you and a guy who's been in baseball probably since he's 2 years old. You're like, based on your qualification of age, you don't feel qualified to manage a Major League Baseball team. That's your qualification?
Right, well, it's not the exact comparison. What I wanted to do was praise...
It's not even in the same universe, Dan.
Grady Sizemore was a 5-tool, but he was the Byron Buxton of the Cleveland Guardians back when they were named something else. So we'll see.
We need more comparison sounders. It's the only logical thing to be done here, Dan.
Can we... All right. Hit the wrong button, but I was too eager to get out of the segment. So let's move forward here and look at the Royals series, Puckett's Picks.
And we'll see you tomorrow night. Puckett's Picks.
Well, the listeners are going to take Buxton, which is not really surprising, but a little surprising because Lewis has been quite good to the listeners as of late. I'm picking second, and I never get to take Royce Lewis, and I realize he hasn't looked good here as of late. I'm still going to take Royce Lewis, and I am convinced he's going to get me the victory.
Now, I went with Matt Wallner, and I was waffling until I went to his page. Something I discovered about Matt Wallner is that he and I share a birthday. I didn't know this. I love when people share my birthday with me. And he and I were both born on the same day, December 12th. Now, different years. I'm a gentleman, so I'm not going to tell my age. But
I'm not dead.
Come on, you can't do that to me.
I think I can. I just did, actually, Dan. So, and then Hogs is going to take Vasquez because that's what Hogs is going to Hogs. Which this time, though, I don't think he's doing it ironically, which is sort of funny. He's the guy. One last note about Matt Wallner that I failed to mention is since Matt Wallner called his shot when talking to Royce Lewis about this 3-run homer he hit, this was his quote, and I just love it so much. He said, Royce's energy is contagious. Sometimes you say dumb things around him and you believe it because it's Royce, and sometimes it just comes out to be true.
Well, I think with that, this has gone long enough. I'm gonna go ahead and send us out.
Please do.
Folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Men for the Win and find our Men for the Win Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on your favorite platform so you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave us a rating or a like, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you can find us on Patreon. The link is in the description. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Twins.
That'll wrap up another episode of Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.